Well, good hump day morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally, and I mean literally, does not work. Let's get open for business here, and let's wake up the football gods. Oh my God, guys. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, the NFL draft kicks off. We'll be here starting at 7 o'clock Eastern for all 3 days. I know the last day is hard. It's hard, but we're going to have a whole lot to do with to talk about. And what we do here is a little differently at the Joe Boo Sports Report because you can be part of the show. If you are a channel member, you'll be able to be in our Zoom link, our Zoom call. You'll be able to be here to give us your thoughts, your ideas, your fear, everything that you want to say about this draft, as well as our exclusive. We started it 2 years ago at the draft, our exclusive Philly Cam, where we watch Philly 500 lose his mark at the draft. We've seen him literally say, I don't want Justin Jefferson, he's ass. Literally. We have seen Rashid, what? Why did we draft a wide receiver? Why did we draft a wide receiver? So you want to tune in for the Joe Boo Sports Report because we do the draft differently than anybody else. We have my man DMV who will be live in Vegas. So definitely be part of the show. We're going to have a good time here. You know, it's always so funny to me because immediately everybody is linked to the Cowboys. Everybody is linked to the Dallas Cowboys. And the reality is we don't go for nobody. We had Von Miller literally asking DeMarcus Ware, can you hook a brother up? Can you call Jerry? They didn't even call him. So this morning I'm getting up as we get ready for the draft. I see this headline over here. Why Julio Jones makes sense for the Cowboys. It's like, first of all, Cowboys ain't going for nobody. They ain't getting no big name free agents. And here's the thing. Julio Jones has gone off a cliff. 2 years ago with Atlanta, he was down to 51 catches, 771 yards. Okay? 3 TDs. Last year, he was down to 31 yards, 31 catches, 434 yards, and 1 TD. Dudes, stop bringing me old-ass players that are literally gone off a cliff. Come on, we can do better than that. We can, come on, seriously, I know this is silly season, but let's do better than, come on, we can do better than this. Here we are with the draft. One of the people who've been linked, of course, to the Cowboys is Kenyon Green. Kenyon Green, offensive guard who can play center and tackle. He's very versatile. Draft prospect, 6.45, and looks to be the real deal. Now, no guarantee that he'll be there when the Cowboys draft, but who knows? But here's the thing that's funny, or unpredictable, I should say, is you don't really know what you're going to get. You honestly don't. Because when I look at Kenyon Green, who's got 6'4", and he's 6'4", 323 pounds, 10.38 hands, and he should be a first-round draft pick, right? You look at his 40-yard dash, 5.24, bench press, 20, vertical jump, 26, broad jump, 102, the shuttle, 5. And we assume that he's going to be great. I bring you Chaz Green. Chaz Green, who was an inch taller, arm length was a half an inch shorter. His weight was about 9 pounds lighter. His hands were bigger. His 40-yard dash was faster. one more bench press, his vertical jump was higher, his standing broad jump was 4 inches further, and his cone drill was way faster. Now, if you just looked at those numbers between the two of them, which one would you pick? Now, his draft prospect grade was considered a 5.5, but you look at the numbers and say, well, why is that, 9/10 of a point lower? I don't know. Because he was faster, stronger, more pliable, could jump higher and run faster. And this is the problem of the NFL draft. Let's go back here for a second here. I want to go back to draft quarterback prospects and some of the things that they said about the quarterbacks. I'm not going to go through all of them, just through a few of them. Look, glasses on because it's kind of small up there. Actually, let's see if we can make it bigger. Boom. Wentz is probably going to be the second quarterback selected in the 2016 draft between California's Jared Goff, in my opinion. Waltz is the best quarterback prospect, and it isn't even close. In January, sources teams had Wentz as the best quarterback prospect in 2016's draft, and nothing's changed. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Jared Goff is likely the first pick, but I think he's the second best quarterback. I know a lot of teams feel that way, and a few teams feel that Goff's gold as a football prospect. Teams question size, arm strength, blah, blah. Okay. All right. So, Paxton Lynch. Lynch is a big benefactor of the trades to the top for the 2016 with quarterbacks on the board. The first two picks. Teams could be scrambling to land him, sources expect Lynch to go in the top 25 picks. At the combine, he showed off his arm strength. He was slower than expected in the 40. His footwork needs work and development under center. Somehow that never did in college. This time, Indianapolis confirmed that Lynch has the skills set to be developed, and he's a prospect and not necessarily a candidate to start from day one. All right, so we had Paxton Lynch. Connor Cook. Now, this is the one, I think this was the one that's interested me. Connor Cook from Michigan. Sources say that Cook has good height, weight, and delivery, but a number of evaluators really don't like him. They think he is too inaccurate and question the lack of leadership with his team not voting him as team captain. If one highly touted quarterback prospect slides like others have in past years, Cook could be a prime candidate. Okay, so I want you to think about that. People said they weren't in love with him, but he's still a second-round draft pick. Let's go down to, again, Christian Hattenberg, another one. Another one that got picked well before Dak Prescott. Finally, is the sixth best prospect, and he was actually the eighth quarterback taken. This is where it's funny. Prescott really helped his draft stock at the Senior Bowl and Combine team sources said. IQ, leadership, skills, characters. They feel his ability to quickly be a captain in an NFL locker room and a leader of men. At the Combine, Prescott had a solid workout to maintain his rising status. However, shortly after that, Prescott landed a DUI arrest and put a damper on enthusiasm around him. Prescott completed 66% of his passes in 2015 for 3,793 yards, 29 TDs, and 5 interceptions. On the ground, he totaled 588 yards with 10 scores. Sources say Prescott as a Tim Tebow 2.0 for playing in the same offense. Though Prescott was better throwing mechanics and functions better out of the pocket than Tim Tebow entering that draft, they think Prescott needs to become a better pocket passer. So, from that, they said teams question Connor Cook, but yet they still took him well above Dak Prescott. You don't know what you don't know. You really don't. And you may look at a guy and say he's got all of the measurements, the intangibles, and so forth, and somehow they become the great players. Herein lies the great conundrum of the NFL. Now, this morning, what kills me is the Cowboys are so entrenched in their ways that they believe that they are doing everything perfectly. that they know better than everybody else. The fact that when they were asked about the Rams loading up with players, and they basically said that, that's not the way to do it, but you've looked at that team that's been to 2 Super Bowls in the last few years, and I dare say, is it 3? Since we've been one, maybe you might want to look at them a little bit more than what you kind of say. The thing that really bugged me from yesterday is we can easily be where we were last year talent-wise. I'm not willing to concede that at all. By the time we get to the playoffs this coming year, we won't be every bit the team that we had going to playoffs last year. That sounds good, but that wasn't good enough to win in the playoffs. What happened to striving for being better than the team that was? And this assumption that we're going to be in the playoffs. Jerry Jones, are you writing checks that you haven't put the players on the field that the team can cash? Well, that press conference didn't do me. It didn't build any confidence in me. But let's listen to what the experts have to say going into the draft.
This is fine at the quarterback position. Elsewhere, some needs have arisen based upon losses in free agency and trade, such as Amari Cooper. Jerry Jones today at the pre-draft press conference says we should think outside the box, be contrarians. And that reminded me a little bit of something Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, said last week, that if you follow what everyone else is doing, you're going to be a middle-of-the-pack team.
And we know how well Howie's done.
That is starting the trend. Now, the challenge is starting the right trend. There are plenty of trends that people start that you look at and say, what the hell are they thinking? And there is a fine line between outside the box and just effing nutty. But I like that Jerry Jones is thinking that way. I just would want to be sure that there's a limit on how much Johnny Walker Blue is consumed while he is brainstorming all these bright ideas that he's going to come up with to be a contrarian.
Yeah, I think if you're a Cowboys fan, that scares you a little bit. The last time they traded up in the first round, Mike, it did not go well. They traded up for Morris Claiborne, 2012, number 6 overall. He didn't turn out to be the player they thought. They didn't do that much research on him either. Didn't bring him in for a pre-draft visit. Didn't do all those things they needed to do before deciding to trade up to take him. They've had more luck trading down. Of course, they traded down in 2013 and ended up with Travis Frederick. That was a really good move. Ended up being an all-pro center before he unfortunately had to retire. So you look at, though, the last 2 years, they've sat where they were. CeeDee Lamb falls to them in 2020. We all thought last year they were going to get that corner. Micah Parsons falls to them because the corners are gone. Maybe they would have taken a corner. They say now they wouldn't have, but we don't know. They could have taken a corner instead of Micah Parsons, but those corners were gone. They end up with perhaps the best player in last year's draft in Micah Parsons. So sometimes you just need to sit there and wait and see if the guy that you want is going to fall to you. In the last 2 years, it's worked out for the Cowboys.
Yep.
And sometimes what you think is bad luck at the time is good luck. 2016, they wanted Paxton Lynch. They wanted Connor Cook. They end up with Dak Prescott, and they were very lucky. They ended up with Dak Prescott in comparison to what the other two guys didn't do in the NFL. Stephen Jones, the son of Jerry, says they aren't ruling out drafting a running back. Look, this is Ezekiel Elliott's last year under his current contract. Maybe they'll work something out to keep him around for 2013. But the only thing that's saving him this year is his salary became guaranteed last year. That's the way you structure a contract to ensure that a guy is going to be around for multiple years. The salary vests is guaranteed 1 year before it's due to be earned. Their hands were tied last year when they kept him after the start of the league year for this year. Next year, $10.9 million salary, not guaranteed. He's going to be gone when they come to him. Or they may not even go to him and try to talk to him about it. They may just cut him and then try to re-sign him on the open market. Who knows? They just may be done with him the way they were done with DeMarco Murray. So it won't surprise me if they go out and draft a running back. And look, that doesn't mean a first-round pick, obviously. But if you scout well, there are plenty of running backs out there. Yeah. Every major college program has a guy who can, at the NFL level, move the chains. If you can block for him, if you trust him to hold on to the football, and if you trust him in pass protection, there are a bunch of guys out there who can get it done. We see it time and again. And it would be smart for the Cowboys to replenish in advance of Ezekiel Elliott being gone next year.
Well, and they did that with Tony Pollard a few years ago, and it turns out last year I thought Tony Pollard was their best running back. I mean, you look at Ezekiel Elliott's numbers over the last 2 years, 61.9 yards per game, 4.1 yards per carry, 6 fumbles. He's not been the same guy that he was before he signed that deal. Obviously, the Cowboys should not have signed Ezekiel Elliott. That deal was a bad deal for them. It was a good deal for Ezekiel Elliott. To him and his agent, the way that worked out with him holding out and going to Mexico and training, he got what he thought he deserved, and probably did up to that point. But it's another lesson in don't pay running backs big money.
Don't pay running backs.
Unless you're certain that it's a Derrick Henry or a Jonathan Taylor type guy that's going to be good at year after year after year. And even then, we saw what happened to Derrick Henry last year. So Tony Pollard's contract is up after this year. Ezekiel Elliott, as you said, is going to be gone unless they redo that contract. So it's likely that they're going to be looking for a new running back next year. Makes sense to use a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick on a running back to start thinking about beyond 2022 into 2023, and maybe that guy can be your starting running back next year.
There's a perception, Shireen, that the Cowboys have fallen off after last year, and this is a time in the NFC where there's a sense that the conference is wide open when you look at the migration of talent from the NFC to the AFC. But the Cowboys haven't really made any moves to get better. They've arguably gotten worse, and as they say, if you're not getting better, you are getting worse. Jerry Jones,
Amen on that one.
Doing what he can to talk himself in toward believing that the tumbler of Johnny Walker Blue is half full. Here's Jerry with a pretty big boast about where his team will be and about his belief that they will be back in the postseason. Here he is from earlier today.
I'm not willing to concede at all that by the time we get to the playoffs this coming year that we won't be every bit the team that we had going in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, when we get to the playoffs this year, I wouldn't bank on that. Look, I'd pick them right now to go, but Eagles were pretty good last year. Giants could be better under Brian Daboll. Washington,
we hear that every year with the Giants.
Wentz. But they got a long way to go to get back to what they were last year. Some guys have to step up. Some guys have to develop. That offensive line concerns me, and we haven't had the draft yet. The draft could go very poorly for them, or they could think it goes very well, and then when it's time to go to training camp, it ends up going very poorly because the guys they picked that they thought were going to be great all ended up being not good. So it's a little premature for that kind of stuff, but sometimes you just have to do that because you need to make the fans think that there's hope. You want to keep them fascinated by the possibilities in April and May and June. And every year can be the year, even if you haven't been to the NFC Championship since the year was 1995.
Well, at least he didn't use the SB words, Mike, Super Bowl. He didn't say that in this press conference, which is unusual for him in the offseason because every offseason, oh, yes, that too. Every year he feels like it's their year and they're going to get back there and they're going to do it. And every year it turns out for disappointment for the Cowboys and for their fans, the only home team to lose in the wild card round. So when he said that, back where we were last season, I'm okay, so you're going to lose in the first round again? Well, you're going to have a new head coach next year and no telling what else changes you're going to have to make to be a contender. But, you know, we've talked before, Mike, when you look at the NFC, they just, to me, don't stack up with the Rams and they don't stack up with the Buccaneers, and that's who they're going to have to beat to get to a Super Bowl. And I just don't see that happening. I don't care what they do in the draft. I just don't see that happening. I don't think there's enough talent they can draft that's going to put them over the top to be that contender.
You have to agree with that. You know, it's going to be hard, although I think Tampa Bay will be coming back down to earth more than people think they will. Tom Brady is a year older and so on. But we'll have to wait and see where it goes. And with that being said, it's time for me to roll on up out of here. See, Roscoe is going up that way. And I will catch you guys on the flip side.
Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.